Okay, we're going live. Hey, and we are live. Okay.
Are we live?
Yes, we are live now.
You can hear me
Let's
clearly?
just. Yep. Am I audible, Roshan?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, it says live.
Awesome. Yes. So once again, very good evening, everyone. And first of all, on the outset, I wish you all a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi. And welcome to the Startup Operator Roundup for this week, wherein we will be discussing all the great startup activities that took place in this week. So yeah, Roshan, why don't you take over this?
Yeah, thanks
Tell
so
us what.
much. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. And really sorry for the delay. I guess there was a little bit of a snafu at our end. But yeah, hope you guys are feeling safer, better wherever you are. And happy to get started. What do we have for this week, Gunjan?
Well, so it has been a really interesting week in the startup community. But first, I would take the moment out to wish all of our viewers and subscribers a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi.
Yeah,
And yeah, took the liberty to dress up in the traditional clothes as well, since although we are all at home, but
fantastic.
that we
Yeah.
won't celebrate, right?
Happy
So, how was your
Happy
day?
Ganesha
How was your day
Chaturthi.
like?
Yeah, happy Ganesha Chaturthi to everyone wherever you're celebrating. Uh, my day has, today I'm fasting, so I won't really be having the modaks or the motichur laddu and any of the other sweets, but I'm saving myself up for quite a feast tomorrow. Ganesh Utsav or Ganesha Chaturthi has been one of my favorite festivals. Um I like it even more than Diwali actually, growing up, because I'm not sure how they celebrated in Kolkata, Gunjan, but uh, where we grew up. I grew up in Bangalore, and Ganesha was a community festival. So you had the kids come together, pull in money, raise. That was my first fundraising experience actually. So we went around
That's
with
fun.
we went around with that little booklet that you got and accepted
Yeah.
donations, put up quite a show, and really, I mean, it taught us a great deal in terms of running an enterprise, right? Because here you had other people trusting their hard-earned money with you, and you had to kind of assuage their concerns. You had to meet their expectations, all of that, and it was so operations heavy. I mean, you had possibly 15 or 20 things associated with the festival on your hands, right? So how do you allocate budgets accordingly? How do you delegate? How do you take care of last mile organizing, etc., etc.? I mean, it was a fantastic experience. So I still remember that I was part of a faction in our layout, that kind of rebelled against the older lot that were organizing the festival to
Uh-huh.
organize our own, right? And it was quite a thrilling experience, and I learned a great deal from that experience. And if you have kids at home, make sure that they go meet other organize similar things with other kids in your society, apartment, whatever. It can teach them a great deal of things, and especially a lot of useful lessons if you want to raise an entrepreneur at home. So how were your celebrations, Gunjan?
My celebrations were good. And talking about Calcutta, Calcutta is a place where we celebrate each and every festival, regardless of what community you come from. So, be it Christmas,
Hmm.
be it Diwali, Durga Puja, Eid, or even Ganesh Chaturthi, uh, people in Calcutta just need an excuse to get out of their houses and meet everyone in the community, right? And like you
Right.
said, similar to what your experience was going house to house collecting donations, I guess my first collecting donations from my neighbors was when I was like 10 years old. It was for Durga Puja. And yes, I couldn't agree more. It has a really close correlation with the startup environment. You're going to pitch, you collect the money,
Yeah.
and then you're making a budget. So yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't agree more with that.
Awesome.
All
So
right.
what else do we have?
So it has been a really eventful week for us. the startup operator itself. We had an amazing episode with Veena. Why don't
Yeah.
you first run us with how the episode was and how your conversation was with her?
Yeah. So surprisingly, I mean, I say surprisingly because VR is sort of a niche, domain, right? I've had people reach out to me and say that this is really really interesting for a couple of reasons, right? So one, they're thrilled that there are some real tangible use cases for VR that is that's prevalent right now, right? Because I mean, I think I mentioned this on our previous roundup as well. VR has been one of those things which has always been the next big thing for the last 10 or 12 years, right? And we've had developments over the last 4 5 years that have made it really, really tangible, right? So you have real world use cases at this point of time, and I think it's only going to get more relevant in this era of remote work and virtualization and so on, right? So that is one thing. And second, a lot of people we're really happy about the application in a domain like healthcare, right? I think I've spoken about this as well, that healthcare is one of those things where it's just such a hoary mess in terms of aligning incentives and different stakeholder priorities and so on and so forth. And one thing that I'm really really positive about going forward is that more of the control will shift towards the consumer, right? So you will have a lot of these, whether it's a diagnostic side, whether it's the patient care side of things, or whatever, moving more towards the consumer and empowering the consumer as such. And that's another thing that seemed to have struck a chord with people, right? So yeah, I mean, if you haven't caught this episode, I suggest you spend about 30 minutes this weekend to have a listen to this. Veena is doing some fantastic work, with her team at Neuro Rehab VR. So, yep.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, right, VR is something that has been there for the past 15 years, but hadn't really taken shape. And it's really
Hmm.
great to see that finally some real life use cases are coming up. And apart
Yeah.
from what Veena is doing with her team at Neuro Rehab on the health space, there have been multiple
Hmm.
real life use cases coming up in the fields of design and architecture as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so now let's get to the news that happened this
Ah,
week. Zerodha
yeah.
completes 10 years this week, and what a
Yeah.
journey they have had, right?
Yeah.
Why
Amazing.
don't you share some new thoughts on that?
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, so Zerodha is one of those companies I've always respected for, a couple of reasons, right? One, the space that they were born in, and they're continuing to dominate at this point of time, right? And second, the way they've built this business out, so maybe I'll start with the second. Zerodha started as a fund house, if I'm not mistaken, and they're pretty much bootstrapped, or they might have raised some small angel funding to begin with. But in the fintech space, where raising money is not that really not hard, you see a lot of frothy valuations and so on and so forth. They've built a completely uh, you know I won't call it old fashioned, but they've built a very conventional business in that space, so which is extremely exciting, right? uh,
Hmm.
as I said, they've raised very minimal funding, and they've grown organically. The other aspect to their growth is how they've incubated businesses, right? So they have this Rain Matter fund, which pretty much has
Hmm.
incubated a bunch of fintech innovations focused at the consumer, right? So that is another really special attribute to their business. Coming to the space itself, now, I mean, financial literacy in India is sort of on the onus of the consumer, right? It's a very buyer beware market. And
Agreed.
if I were to give you an example, as I was talking to Monica Halan on a different podcast, what she says is, imagine someone sold you a car and said that, hey, these brakes may work or not, right? But it's your responsibility to ensure that it works. So it's that kind of a market, right? So financial services has always been fraught with risks. It's a very opaque sort of a market. It makes even very very smart people feel really dumb because of the jargons they use, because of how dense the information is, the lack of transparency and so on, right? And whether it's information, whether it's transactions or anything, right? I mean, it's just been so difficult. But then you consider what Zerodha has done, right? Even above the zero brokerage or near zero brokerage innovation that they have, the fact that you can access these products. I think that they also have I think government bonds listed on their
Yeah.
coin product, if I'm not mistaken, right? Bunch of these corporate bonds, government bonds, all of these were difficult to access, not enough information, whatever. Now the thing is, I mean, all of this is over 200, 300 products are listed on one simple interface, and then it takes minutes, if not seconds, for you to transact, move money. Very plain, very simple. The fact that they have the the Academy as well, which has very, very good courses, I mean, built into modules to help educate the customer. I'm a big fan of this business, and the fact that I mean, they've been around for 10 years is just a real testament to their journey. The fact that they're the largest in their space at this point of time is a testament to their journey. And I did have a look at the blog that Nitin Kamath, who's the co-founder and CEO, put out, and I'm really excited for what's to come. Because I think he said the focus for the next 10 years was nudge intelligence, which I'm sure, I mean, you and I are familiar with, having
Right.
worked at,
Yeah.
working at Waymo, right? So give something before you ask, be intelligent enough to enable people, empower people, and so on, right? So I'm really excited for what's to come. And it's really a model for how you should build a business around product innovation, around customer love. Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic business. I can't you'll have to get me to shut up about Zerodha,
No, I mean, you mentioned it's a really interesting space in itself, right? With this whole financial inclusion aspect coming in. And
Mhm.
Zerodha was one of the first companies to enter this space, right? And almost like after 10 years, we have companies like Grow, we have companies like Scriptbox that is making it more easier for the consumers to get
Yeah,
into the investment
yeah,
business.
yeah.
Otherwise,
So just a
I,
quick
I
yeah, sorry, go ahead, please.
no, I was saying that I remember my father when he was into trading, the amount of hassle he had to go through with all the paperwork, calling up the broker,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
finally getting to buy or sell stocks. And right now the experience has become so easy, right?
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, so there are three aspects to this whole, fintech consumer business, right? I mean, the one is the data aspect, data and information aspect. The second is the way you transact, and the third, I would say, is on the product side of things, right? So, in terms of data and information, I mean, the sheer amount of data that you have. And here, I mean, I would even call out something like a Tijori Finance, for example, which I discovered, yesterday or day before. The amount of data that they give, right, is just amazing, and it's so lucid, it's so simple to understand and consume. I mean, it's just fantastic, right? Leaps or orders of magnitude better than whatever was there earlier, right? The second, the way you transact, I mean, the way you transact is so simple. I mean, it's at the click of a button these days, right?
Yeah,
None of that
right.
call someone, they do something and then get back to you, and then whatever, right? uh,
Yeah.
and I mean, the third, in terms of the products itself, right? Here again, I mean, it's a you could say there's a positive and a negative, right? But then, I mean, there are plenty of interesting products in this space. I mean, if you look at peer-to-peer lending, for example, right? uh, there are ways and means to engineer these products, and they've built these products out for people, right?
Lending card, for example.
Or yeah, lending card, I think Finzi, uh, a few of these as well, right? So overall, I mean, startups have really sort of transformed uh, financial services in India, right? I mean, and which is why, I mean, if you look at the last 4 months, there have been record number of investors coming into the market over the last 4 months, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, there's some fantastic innovation going on.
So talking about investors coming into the market, that brings us to our next news item. That is,
Mhm.
Sahil Lavine launches a new seed fund. I guess this was in
Yeah.
partnership with some partnership.
bunch of
I
angels,
really
I think.
remember.
Yeah,
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 it was
yeah. Bunch
Angel
of
List.
LPs.
Yeah, they partnered
Yeah,
with the Angel List.
AngelList.
Yeah.
I think Naval Ravikant of AngelList is one of the LPs. And this is not something that happened last week, but I thought it was interesting to call this out because I think we missed this last week, right? The fact that couple of things. So one is, I mean, you have these operators who are now launching funds, right? And you can there's this. I think his name is John Morris, Hugh Morris. The guy was head of growth at Tinder. I'm not getting his name properly. Jeff Morris, something of that sort, right? So he's launched a fund. There's this lady Brian Kimmel who's launched a fund, right? And so on and so forth. So you have a bunch of these operators launching their own fund, right? And it seems like, the fact that they have access, right? The fact that they have influence and access to some of the deals that are happening is a key differentiator. Then the fact that they've seen the whole 0 to 1, 1 to 10 journeys, and they can actually significantly enable the founders is another key differentiator, right? So the fact that these guys are launching funds is actually, I mean, pretty interesting. There's this concept of a rolling fund, which I haven't studied the technicalities yet, but that seems an interesting instrument as well, right? So going forward, I think you will see a lot of these operator-led funds coming into play. I don't know if it will happen in India soon enough, but yeah, yeah. I mean, it's going to be an interesting development for sure. It's going to be a very interesting development where advisors turn into sort of angels, and so on, right? And it's a huge net positive for founders as well, because look, I mean, between two sort of how should I put it, between two sources of funding, right? The only differentiator is the amount of help that each person can provide, right?
Right.
So aside from the valuation, of course, right? So the fact that these guys are launching funds means that they can help, especially in the early stages or very early stages. They can cause a significant difference to your startup. So I'm pretty excited for this new development that's happening.
Right. So you're able to get more hands-on with these sort of investors, right? Like you're also capitalizing on the network that they have built by being early operators in these startups, and plus they have the more hands-on
Yeah.
experiences of executing.
Yeah, yeah. See, the thing is that I mean, again, being entirely realistic, right? Sorry, we can go back to the previous slide. Um, Again, being entirely realistic, when someone sort of invests in 25 or 30 companies, right, and expecting that person to be really hands-on on your particular startup as a founder is not realistic, right? But even then, even so, I think there's a specific attribute that an operator can bring to the table that can be immensely valuable, right? And actually, I mean, if you look at some of the top tier VCs, the people who have done really, really well, except for I would say one or two or maybe three or four exceptions to this rule. Most of them are operator founders who've transformed into investors, right? So in fact, I mean, Vinod Khosla has this tenet, which is you don't have as an investor, you can't really advise an entrepreneur unless you've been in his or her shoes yourself. So it's going to be interesting times.
So yeah, testament from some of the interviews we have had in the startup operator, an operator turned founder
Yeah,
turned
yeah,
investor.
absolutely. Man, some of those
Yeah.
guys can absolutely can do this. Yeah. In fact, a few have already started doing some of this, I think. Yeah.
All right. So moving on, I guess this is the biggest news in India right now that for
Yeah.
the first time a startup Dream11 wins the title sponsorship for IPL, right? And that too at a
Yeah.
50% a lesser price, right? A 50% discount.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
does this open up a new channels for startups in terms of marketing or in terms of expansions?
Yeah. Yeah, see, I think I've always said this, before as well. I mean, in our conversations, in terms of what channels to use and so on and so forth, right? It's never about cost. It's always about value. well, I mean, few times it can be about cost if it's an exorbitant price that you have to pay. But then, it really is about value, and if you get to sponsor the IPL at a fraction of the price it is, well, why not? And the fact that, startups are looking at these assets, I mean, I think the shortlist was Byju's, Dream 11, and one other company which was also a startup. I think
Those,
Unacademy. I think
yeah,
Unacademy,
an
right?
academy, yeah.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
three of
So
them startups.
all three of them startups, right? So that's I got started about 13 years back in this ecosystem, and at that point of time, it was unheard of, right? Well, forget about 13 years back. I mean, I think even 5 or 6 years back, it would have been, it was not entirely common. But yeah, I'm really it sort of reflects the ambitions and aspirations of the startups, right? So the fact that you have all of these guys bidding for the biggest sports tournament in the country, right? So yeah, this is a fantastic development. More positivity, more optimism for the startups.
Absolutely. Right. So the next is a very talked after in the global markets, right? Who is going to acquire TikTok now?
Yeah.
And we have seen
Mm.
the amount of heat that the company has been getting. And recently, with Donald
Mm.
Trump again coming out and saying it out loud that he has to give the go ahead. If TikTok wants to run its operations in the US, it needs to be its own US entity, right? And that has
Mm.
given a rise to a lot of debates, right? So, what is your
Mm.
take on it?
See, I think we're past the point of laissez-faire, or I don't know how. I never understand how to pronounce that, properly. I've been saying this incorrectly for I think God knows how long. But anyway, I mean, you get the point, right? So we're past the point of free markets, capitalism, as we know it, right? Because people understand the amount of leverage that these technology platforms have, and with China, I mean, the security considerations and so on, so forth, right? So it's only natural for every country to start clamping down on these. I mean, we've seen this, right? We've seen the recent congressional hearings of Facebook, Google, and
Amazon.
Amazon, right? So it's going to happen. I mean, we're past the point where someone like a Facebook or someone like a TikTok or whoever can just expand unchecked into every damn country on the planet, right? And I don't know. I mean, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But every nation will try to play its leverage, right, and not give this out for nothing, right? So not sure
Absolutely.
about who will acquire TikTok, whether it's Microsoft or whoever else, right? But this should be an
Mhm.
interesting thing.
Right. Um, Yeah, and also something that really intrigued me about this whole story, right, is that big enterprise companies are actually, placing their bets. So that got me thinking, what is
Mm,
it for the enterprises over here, right? And on diving a little deeper,
mm,
what I
mm,
guess for both Microsoft and Oracle, getting TikTok into their umbrella is more of
mm,
a cloud infrastructure play because
mm,
on top we have Amazon Web Services, right, in the double-digit market share, and out of the, I guess Oracle is not even in the top 10 cloud service providers. There was a
mm.
recent article in which I read if Oracle gets the TikTok operations in US, they are going to see an 8% or 8 to 10% jump in their cloud usage. That could be a big win. And for Microsoft, on the other hand, it's a 2 to 3%. So yeah, I guess
Yeah, I
companies are
mean,
buckling up on their cloud infrastructure.
yeah, could be. I mean, but see, at the size of Microsoft, right? I mean, it's about hedging, right? So Microsoft missed the whole consumer bus. I won't say they missed the whole consumer bus, but then I mean, look at phones, for example. They're not on phones, right? Or uh, I
Well,
think
they tried.
Xbox
I
has been
mean,
losing. Yeah, of course they
Microsoft did
tried,
try to
and they
enter
had.
the phone space.
Yeah, I'm not sure you remember Zune, which competed with iPods. Yeah, I mean, so I guess I mean it's always been an itch that they have to scratch. So that is fair. As an aside, I mean, cloud revenue is something. I mean, we can do a whole section on that, right? How cloud revenue has gone up over time, and now more so because of COVID. And the way Microsoft has built Azure, even though they came in late, is just phenomenal, right? I mean, it goes to Satya Nadella's. It's a testament to Satya Nadella's focus that they've been able to build that out. So, yeah,
Yeah,
exciting
and
times to come.
the Azure platform got a huge boost after Microsoft acquired GitHub, right? Connecting the whole the
Hmm.
platform with the engineers. So yeah,
Hmm.
an amazing
Hmm.
power play.
Yep.
Right. Um, so yeah, there were some really interesting tweets the past week, right?
Hmm.
Semil tweeted Asana is going for an IPO, right? And
Hmm.
interestingly, instead of going through the public, it's going to a direct listing, right? That is registering with the
Yeah.
New York Stock Exchange. So yeah, what are your views on this?
So, do you use Asana?
Oh well, yeah, we do use Asana. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a trick question because we started using Asana, on and off. I think what was that? 1 month back, 2 months back?
It's been 1.5, 2 months. Yeah.
Yeah, 1.5, 2 months back. So I started using Asana back. I think it was 2013 or 14, if I remember correctly, right? And when I saw the demo recently, one of the things that hit me was how much that product has grown, right? Even in 2013, 14, I won't say it was bare bones or whatever. It had all of the functional elements that you see even today, whether it's creating tasks and subtasks or whatever it is. But then, I mean, if you look at something like templates, right, which is clearly something that has evolved over a period of time, it's a phenomenal product leap. To say that, hey, you're running a marketing campaign. Here is a template that has worked across thousands, if not tens of thousands of companies. Why don't you just use this, right? So and think about this guy, man, Dustin Moskovitz,
Yes.
co-founder of Facebook, and then gets
Facebook.
it right for a second time with Asana, right? I mean, it's phenomenal, right? And he's built the business out over 8 or 9 years. uh, that's just amazing. And uh, in terms of the market itself, again, I mean, even in 2013 or 14, it was a pretty crowded market, right? There was already Trello. There were a bunch of to-do
Roshan, we're
apps.
dropping you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just dropped for a while over there. You're
Yeah,
talking
so
about
I
the
was talking
marketplace.
about, yeah, I was talking about the market as well. That even in 2013 or 14, it was a very crowded market, right? So you already had the likes of Trello, you had a bunch of to-do apps, and so on and so forth. It was a very fragmented market, and to choose to build for this market is phenomenal. Is really really phenomenal the way they've built this business. So yeah, more power to them.
What's your hack in have maintaining a productive day?
I don't know if I should say I've devolved or I've, yeah, I mean, I could say I've devolved, right? So I've devolved to notepads, man. That's it. So
The evergreen.
yeah. So I have a notepad. I put down 3 tasks that I have to get done for the day. And pretty much everything else is sort of a distraction, but, uh, I deal with it as it comes. Yeah.
All right. Um,
Actually, I'm reminded of something that uh, I don't know if it was on the Flatheads episode, or yeah, it was on the Flatheads episode, about something someone said where if you're building for a fragmented or a crowded market, you want to go. Ah, shucks. Yeah, maybe I'll fish it out. Maybe I'll fish it out. Let's move on.
all right. All right. Okay. So next we have Scott talking about the Uber story, right? How Uber,
Yeah.
just the pace at which the company has grown from San Francisco to almost global operations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this was a long Twitter thread, and I did not have the means to put it all in one single slide. But maybe I'll link it in our social channels for everyone to have a look at it. But
Yeah.
yeah, Scott talks about how Uber was, following the old hacks of expanding a startup that is picking up the
Mm-hmm.
phone and all, and how they built up the whole driver community in tandem with their customer base, right? This is
Yeah.
a great story.
Yeah. So I just remembered, I think it was Gary Tan who said there's a direct relationship between how deep your minimum viable product must be and how crowded your market is, right? So that is, something that maybe, I mean, we should look at with Asana, right? The fact that they've built out a deep enough product in that crowded market, right? Um, with Uber, I mean, I can't wait for people to listen to the episode we have upcoming, right, where
Yeah,
we spoke to Akshay BD, who is was part of the early Uber team in India. The fact that they just expand with 3 people, in every new city,
yeah,
and there was this time when they expanded to about 55 or God knows, I think maybe 200 cities in the span of a year or couple of years, right?
right,
Again, something unthinkable for 3 people to go out and build an ecosystem, because Uber again is an ecosystem, right? You have the supply side with the drivers, you have the demand side with the consumers. Now, on both of these ends, because it's a new product and a service, nobody is really familiar with what you do, who you are. And imagine going to drivers and evangelizing something like this. It's too good to be true. And then talking to consumers and getting them to download the app and book on the app and so on and so forth. And then you have the third added I won't call it a spanner in the works, but then you have the third element of the government itself, right? With all of these crazy regulations of,
right.
how you should run your business. So,
Also the
so
labor
Uber is
unions as
just,
well.
yeah, labor unions and so on and so forth. So Uber is just a phenomenal business. I mean, it's one of those things. I think 100 years from now, people will look back and probably name it among the top 50 things that changed the world or whatever. I mean, again, it's a
Absolutely.
very uh, you know uh, a very startup oriented outlook to that, but I really feel it's changed the world in many different ways, from an on demand perspective, from a growth perspective. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is it's a fantastic thread. I mean, you guys should definitely check it out. I think we'll link it in the description. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. For me, the biggest, I wasn't too aware of what the Uber growth story was. I was just researching, and then it hit me. The way they managed both the partner community, that is their drivers, as well
Hmm.
as keeping it in tandem with the demand for the app, right? In terms of
Yeah.
expanding to other cities or serving existing markets, it's been
Yeah.
just it's a story to read about. And
Yeah. No,
for
I
people who
mean,
are watching,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Go
for
on.
people
Sorry.
watching us live, we had Neil from TapChief talk at length about this with you, right? On how to match your demand as well as the supply side. So, would highly recommend everyone to maybe
Yeah.
listen to that episode once again.
Yeah, two-sided marketplaces are very complicated to build, man. I mean, it's just really complicated to get started on something like that, because just matching supply and demand is not a straightforward thing. And you have all of these other elements to it, like the fact that you really have to build a platform where people can transact, can engage. Yeah, I mean, it's a heck of a challenge. Yeah. All right, let's move on.
All right. So next we have David, who has a very thought-provoking
Yeah.
tweet, right? If you want to be a creator, save more than you think you need to, especially take more photos and write more notes. Your future self will definitely thank you. So I
Yeah.
guess
So
you can testify to this, right?
absolutely. So David is one of my favorite people to follow on Twitter for anything writing and productivity. The guy just has a lot of original insights, and I'm really in awe of how much useful information he puts out on a daily basis, right? And I'm actually a voracious note taker, I would say. Right, I note down random things. I mean, in fact, today, I mean, I was summarizing a book for a few friends and family, right? I mean, it was a book on personal finance. uh, I think that's really important, because one, it distills your learnings. I mean, it crystallizes your learning, so you validate what you learn, right? And second, I mean, it's a very useful reference to go back to, and I really don't like relying on memory to do things, and this used to happen all the time because I used to write, and I used to write songs as well. And anytime you hear a melody, it's always best to kind of, and this everyone will tell you, right? So that's the story of who's that guy, James Hetfield. The he I think it was on Joe Rogan or somewhere else. I mean, by the way, I mean, you should check out the Joe Rogan podcast
Yeah.
with James Hetfield. It's
I
a
recently
heck of
started.
a
I recently
podcast.
started listening to.
It's a heck of a
Mm.
podcast. He talks about beekeeping, man. I mean, it's just it's amazing. It's amazing, right? Uh, so yeah, I mean, James Hetfield is on the phone talking to someone, and he is talking to someone with one hand, and he's just noodling the guitar, right? And he starts playing Nothing Else Matters, which is all open
Wow.
strings, and it's just about four
Yeah.
notes that goes back and forth, right? And he gets the idea, and he's like, hey, let me call you back, right? So hangs up and then starts writing that song down. So yeah, I mean, I never ever take my ideas for granted. If I get an idea, I always write it down, because I've lost God knows how many ideas because I thought I could remember it later. So yeah, if you are a creative person, actually, if you're just any sort of a person, you better get into that habit of writing things down and saving things. As such, I mean, yeah, like David says, your future self will definitely thank you for it. You should write stuff down, Gunjan, and not rely on your you know on your
Yes,
memory as
absolutely.
such.
No, but one thing what I really liked about your note taking is that the ways you publish those small bites every day on LinkedIn, that was really great. It was like you should actually, go ahead and compile that into a book.
Yeah.
So,
So, I've become a little indisciplined on that, but when I started doing it about 2 years back, I would just sit on the weekend, maybe on a Sunday evening or whatever, and just write down 3 or 4 posts for the week, and what would happen is I would have this notepad where I would save all of these uh, ideas, and sometimes these were just 1 or 2 lines that come to you at random times, right? So the other thing is that to think that your best ideas will come to you at one point in time when you sit down to write is just
yeah,
nonsense. Your best ideas can come to you anytime, right? And usually, I mean, it's at a time when you are doing something nowhere related to what you're doing, right? Like in the shower, or
yeah,
you're working out, or you're listening to something, or something just hits you, right? um, so yeah, I mean, I used to write down these 1 line, 2 line ideas, half an idea, quarter of an idea, and then it used to be so much easier for me to sit on that Sunday and then really expand that out, rather than think up new ideas on the spur. So
yeah,
even look at what we're doing with the weekly. Basically, this is anything that catches our fancy over the week, and then we have
yeah,
it on a slide. So
absolutely. So, all right, moving on. The next tweet is by Kevin Lee, again talking about creativity. He talks
yeah,
the growth story of humans of New York, right?
yeah,
And today we
another
have for
fantastic
almost every
thread.
major city, we have this page. So I will
Yeah,
link this in the description as well. So Meena, why don't you tell us, live viewers as well as a
yeah,
community, on what this thread was all about?
yeah. Man, this guy is another person who I really consider an idol for any content creators as such, right? The sheer amount of hustle that he's had, not just hustle, I mean, the sincerity to the craft, right? So here is Brandon Stanton. I think it's 2008, 2009, gets laid off. He's trading bonds. And he says, you know what? Screw this. I want to do something else in my life. I'm just going to go and photograph 1,000 people on the streets of New York, right? He gets started photographing random people and adding 1 line, 2 lines, starts seeing some traction, adds more of a context, and then here we are, right? He's probably got 4 or 5 New York Times bestsellers, uh, has made many $1 million thanks to what he started as sort of an innocuous habit as such, right? Just to get out of the mundane. Um, many different lessons from Brandon's story, right? But I mean, one of the biggest lessons that I can draw from this is people always, especially with these podcasts and everything, right? I often get asked, what your vision for this podcast is and where do you see this going and everything. And to be really honest, I mean, and this is what I tell them as well, that I didn't get started with this vision. uh, I don't have a grand vision for this podcast. I'm just trying to put things together and progress in a direction that I think is interesting. That's it, right? uh, you never
Just
know
keep on
how
adding
things
value.
add up. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you never know how things add up, and value always compounds with time. I mean, if you're sincere about whatever you're doing, it always compounds with time. I'm sure Brandon did not know 12 years back when he started that it would amount to something like this, right? uh, I don't know if it was Naval or someone else had this quote saying, you need to be unconventionally right, and then it's worth something. And you will never know if you're unconventionally right when at the time of taking that chance or taking that initiative. You'll never know. So to me, the fact that small things add up is a fantastic thing. So people often delay or defer things because they don't really have a path forward as such. I think, what, you should just trust yourself and move forward an inch at a time. And who knows, I mean, 10 or 12 years down the line, you might have 3 or 4 bestsellers with the New York Times. So yeah, this is another fantastic thread that you should read. And Kevin is another great guy to follow as well. He puts out amazing threads, amazing threads.
Right, right. All right.
Yeah, and the
Moving
fact
on.
that, I mean, just one last thing. Sorry,
Yeah, sure,
just one last
sure.
thing about Brandon. I mean, as you mentioned, Humans of New York is a brand that's been copied, probably 50 times over,
It's
right?
a
So,
global
or
phenomenon
I should say
now.
500 or 5,000 times over. We have a Humans of Bombay, Humans of Bangalore, whatever. No one has
Right.
grown in that stature, right? No one has grown in that stature. And that's a testament to Brandon's work, right? And the amount of sincerity he brings to the work and his unique perspective on this thing, right? So you just can't copy it. I mean, you can copy the format, you can copy all of the things, uh, aside from Brandon, but you can't copy Brandon. So that's another phenomenal attribute to the whole brand as such. That's a great place to be in. Yeah.
And it's also the consistency of quality that you deliver, right? To become
Yeah.
such a global phenomenon, right? You have to be consistent with the sort of work that you produce, and that consistency can
Yeah.
only come if it is coming from, if it's genuine. You can't have that consistency if you're copying. So yeah, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
Humans of New York is great. So this kind of gets us to the end of this week's roundup. Before that, why don't we talk about our upcoming episode?
Yeah. So this is amazing. So I had a fun chat with Akshay. We spoke for over an hour about how he built out Uber and Akshay's story himself. So Akshay is a lawyer or a reformed lawyer, right? And he's done a bunch of things, man. I mean, so he's done a bunch of things that would qualify as growth, as operations, and so on and so forth. I'm really excited for people to listen to this. You will get to hear how they went about building the whole 0 to 1 journey, right, with Uber India, and what he's doing right now, advising startups. And he's also one of those guys who I think is a bit of a futurist, right? So if you want to know, if you want some crystal gazing, there's plenty of crystal gazing as well in this episode on how things will be going forward as well. So it's a fantastic episode, and I can't wait for you guys to check it out.
Awesome. So that gets us to the end of this week's roundup. And yeah, it has been a hell of a week, right?
Woohoo!
With a lot of yeah, so it has been a hell of a week with a lot of funding stories all around. Startups, playing the big cards, like sponsoring IPLs and the likes, right? And yeah, looks like next week is going to be much better, hopefully. Can only be optimistic of the times to come. So, any parting words from you, Roshan?
Absolutely. So, hey, this was fun, Gunjan. Good roundup. Yeah, thanks again for putting this together. So, and stay safe, take care, and have fun, guys. This is one thing that I want to say is that take time out to spend some time on yourself, all of you, right? So you're going to be working from home for a long time, and I hate to be the bearer of such news, which Gunjan and the team always gets to me for this, but yeah, I mean, you're going to be working from home. You're going to be working like this for quite some time to come. So get used to this and make the best of this. Actually, So all right, take care. Have fun.
All right. Thank you, everyone, whoever joined us live, and to our community startup operators. Uh, once again wish a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi. Have
Yeah.
good fun with your family. As Roshan said, this is not a sprint; it's a marathon, and during such in the pandemic. And so yeah, again, see you again next week. Bye, everyone. Bye, Roshan.
Bye bye. See ya.